Well, there we go. Thank you. See, I remembered to do it.
Yes, you're good.
I had a heck of a time getting in. Did everybody else?
No, mine just went straight through. Could be the storms though that are circling around.
Oh, that storm made me really angry because it broke into my nap time. I have invited some 4-H members, so hopefully they'll come. And they're still coming, so
Are you having to admit everybody or is it,
yeah.
oh, then okay, it wasn't set up the right way then.
No, it was not, but that's okay. We'll deal with it.
Sometimes though, even when I put that, it clicks it back so that you have to do it yourself.
All right. Seems to be letting some in and some not. But anyways, we got 22, which is good. So Linda and I were talking about the storm. Did everybody else get a storm today?
No.
Oh, it was, the thunder and the lightning was just horrific. I was sitting outside and I bang and sizzle, but it didn't take the hydro out or anything. So
No, we didn't have one in Trenton, so I don't know where you are.
it's near Stratford, Ontario.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Perhaps we're gonna get it yet.
Yeah, you might. I was hoping, because we were doing a picture op at 5:30, I was sure hoping it was over by then. And it was, the sun was shining, so we were good.
You were good, yeah.
Yeah.
We had off and on showers all day in Thunder Bay, but nothing very noteworthy.
No, same here.
Well, I guess it was noteworthy because I only got a 10-minute nap before the thunder woke me. All right, well, we'll get right into tonight's program. And this is my land acknowledgement. And this is my personal one. And my goal today as an individual is to acknowledge those who have lived on and cared for the land from time immemorial, to express my gratitude to those who reside here and to honor the Indigenous people who have lived and worked on and cared for this land historically and presently. And as I said, I invited some 4-H kids, but now let's see, Dave, have I got you on as a co-host, right?
I'm not sure if I'm co-host, but I think I can share screen.
Well, let's try it and see. So this is got the wrong one. David Green, and he is from Green Home Farms Limited, and his mom is a devout WI member, and he is going to share with us. Yep, looks like it's working. His something from his farm that you might find interesting. And I don't know when you want to take questions throughout or when it's done or whatever works, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty easygoing. So if somebody has some questions as we're going along there, that's quite all right. Not sure how I'll see them, but you can. I guess there's usually a hand raised thing. I'm used to Teams there, so I'm not do a whole lot of work on Zoom, but we'll get there.
Perfect.
Or you can just speak up.
And how did yours go? Mom was a little concerned because they weren't home either, so.
That's all right. We got a pretty good crew there, so
Or,
it's more running kids around to 4-H meetings and horseback riding lessons and all that kind of stuff and getting back for this. So
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you very much for taking the time tonight, and I'll let you carry on.
okay. All right. Well, thank you for having me tonight. I'm David Green there. As you were told there, I'm kind of a son of Laura Green, who probably a lot of you guys know. Um, I farm just south of Stratford, about 10 minutes, kind of between Stratford and Embro, and I farm along with my father Gord, as well as with my mother, and I have 4 daughters, kind of ranging from age from 16 down to 7. So at least the youngest 3 kind of love the farm and love being around the farm. So kind of looking forward to, hopefully they want to someday take over the farms. Let's see, why we do this. Um, so at Green Home Farms there, we kind of have some core goals there that we've developed over the years, and the kind of farming profitably with the least environmental impact, and being good stewards of the land in order to build a strong future for the next generation. Um, some of the things that we've done to do that, kind of 2 main things that we've switched to minimal tillage or no tillage. Here's kind of a picture of our how we plant corn. It's a strip tiller. So that's kind of 2nd year corn, and we're basically working the ground in between the corn stalks. And that's kind of the result after the corn's up. So my dad was kind of a pioneer in that in Ontario. Wasn't the first one, but definitely on the leading edge there. We kind of did no-till soybeans and wheat forage since 1994, and then we started into corn in 1995. So to be honest, from a farming aspect, I've never ran a plow or a cultivator. I was kind of too young when that kind of stuff switched over, so wouldn't even know how to do it. But yeah, so one of the that's kind of the one thing that we do is okay, yeah. Anyways, so the cons slideshow here. Sorry. Yeah. So the main topic that I was asked to speak about was our anaerobic digesters that we run on our farm. Um, the concept was kind of first explored in 2007 when we built I kind of came home from college, and we kind of built you see in the picture, there's the barn on the left hand. There's one with a dirty roof and one with a clean roof. So I kind of came home, and we kind of did a succession planning and strategized to expand the dairy herd, and we kind of built that barn. So we kind of looked at digesters at that time. They were kind of a thing that had been going for 15 years in Europe, but there wasn't really any program in Ontario to help us along. So kind of put it on the back burner at that time. There wasn't any program that gave you a long-term contract on electricity, nor the knowledge base on how to feed these things in Ontario. So kind of put it on the back burner, and kind of revisited it in 2011 when the Liberal government in Ontario came out with the Green Energy Act, which led to a lot of the FIT contracts. So that was the same time as a lot of the wind farms kind of went up, and a lot of the solar panels, like the standalone units, the 10 kilowatts that you see in a lot of people's fields. That was all the micro FIT program, and we kind of fell under the FIT contract. So first we built our digester, and you guys don't know the concept. Basically, you have a covered tank, and that you pump all the dairy manure or any manure into it. And then you can also feed organic waste to it. And a lot of the back, it's an anaerobic state. So the anaerobic bacteria eat the organic matter and release methane gas. So the methane gas you can either pull off and run it in a natural gas engine that produces electricity, or the other avenue is you can clean the gas up and sell it for natural gas. Basically, I'm producing it's a dirty natural gas. So it might be 60% methane, whereas a natural gas that you get in your pipeline would be like 98% pure methane. So you have to clean it up, pressurize it, and put it in the line. So, or what we do is we burn that gas in a generator, in an engine that's running a generator to produce electricity, and then selling it to the Hydro One, or the IESO is who we're really selling it to, but our local utility. So the first one hit the ground in 2013, and we started off with 250 kilowatt per hour contract. We always had the intention that we wanted to do an expansion and get to 500 kilowatts. Some of our peers in the industry were already at 500 kilowatts. But we felt it was a kind of a good idea to crawl, walk, run theory on things, and because it's still fairly new technology in Ontario, and I think that's kind of boded us well there. That's a picture of our very first digester, and we went through some learning curves, found some problems that we didn't like. So when we expanded and put the second vessel up in 2017, we kind of knew what we didn't like with the first one, so we were able to make changes and improve our system a lot better. So both vessels that are Manure in is 2,100 cubic meters. And that's about a 45 to 60 day retention time. So if you picture a digester, is a lot like feeding a cow, a lot like a rumen on a cow. Basically, you want it warm, you're heating it, you're stirring it, and it's basically methanogens or bacteria, much like a cow, that's breaking down fibers and organic matter. So the longer it sits in the vessel, the more time the bacteria have to eat. There's you hear nutrition, short chain fatty acids and long chain fatty acids, yada yada yada. But basically, so the longer chain fibers take longer to break down. So the more retention time you have, the longer, the more gas per ton you get out. There's just a picture of basically our digesters get fed manure as well as organic waste from commercial industry. So some of it's solid and some of it's liquid. The solid stuff. Do you have a question? Anybody? No. So the solid waste we feed into this thing, which kind of augers it into the digester, and the other liquid stuff we pump. Some of the byproducts of our digester, we separate the liquids. So basically inside that vessel is like a liquid manure, but it's hot liquid manure. We run it through a separator, which is what's on the screen now, and it pulls all the solids off. And we actually reuse those solids and bed our dairy herd up. All of our livestock, most of our livestock, I should say, not the young calves, but all the older stuff there, we bed with that we call it a separated solids there. So we're able to reuse it, and basically that material goes underneath the cows, gets used for bedding, and then it goes back into the digester. So basically those long fibers get another chance to get digested down. The end product that comes out is basically liquid manure, which we're able to spread on our fields and using it for fertilizer for the crops that we're growing. So it's kind of, we're trying to do this, I'll call it a circular economy where, you've heard the term from field to fork. Well, we're doing field to fork and then back to field. We're taking waste organics from society and getting a second use out of them as well. One of our biggest learning curves that we ran into with the whole project was getting enough organic waste to feed our system. And when we first got up and operating, kind of the manure that we can produce accounts for about 30% of the gas production. We hope that our cows are somewhat efficient at eating their food and getting the nutrition out of it. So the end product, it doesn't have that much gas potential in it, but what it does have is a really good base of bacteria in the cow manure that the digester loves. So it's kind of like the base of a cake, right? Your flour of the cake. And then the organic waste that we feed is where we get a lot of the energy. So it could be anything from we get products like chicken waste from processing. So from Maple Lodge, we get grocery waste from Loblaws. So that's stuff that's expired in their grocery stores. We get that back. We get DAF material. So a lot of, or actually a better example would be grease trap waste. So grease trap companies go around all the restaurants now, and it's by law that stuff can't go down the drain to the wastewater treatment plant. So there has to be interceptors. Those guys will actually take that stuff, clean it up, grab the stuff that they can use off it, like oil, and then we would get the stuff left over. So it's French fries, bit of oily stuff, chicken wings, that kind of thing. Just to give you a bit of an example. So what we ended up running into when we first got going is trying to find enough organic waste. So we ended up talking to waste haulers, waste collectors, and a lot of them really didn't want to deal with one farmer. They had their ways of getting rid of their waste, and they weren't really looking to change. So it was very hard to get get much material. So kind of two scenarios that ended up happening for us is, well, if the guys won't bring me the waste, we'll go get it. So we ended up investing in a bit of trucking. I found some waste from a apple processing plant, and they basically told me you could come and get all the organics you want. You guys just got to truck it. So that's what I needed. Go and bought the truck and the trailers and started hauling it. The same time, there was quite a few of these digesters getting built. So there was a group that formed of originally 10 digesters. We formed a company called Cornerstone Renewables. And the idea of that was the group could work together to get some of the bigger contracts for waste in the province. So you can imagine if you're like a Maple Leaf and you have a massive plant, they don't really want to talk to one digester because A, they have too much waste to supply to one digester. And two, if that digester ever broke down, what are they going to do? I mean, the chickens still need to get processed. So what we're able to do by that is having 10 farm sites, everybody working together, and that material could get spread around the 10 digesters. And if one digester was broke down, no big deal. We just divert it to other people. So that's really, really worked well for us in the industry, and we've done very well at it. Here's kind of a picture of that produce waste we get from Loblaws. It comes in trucks and bins, and we unload those. It looks not bad there because it's frozen, but trust me, once it thaws out, it doesn't smell or look nearly as good. But that's basically expired stuff that they're not going to put on the shelves, and it comes back, and we receive it and empty those bins out and send them back. So, like I said, that Cornerstone Renewables was started with 10 digesters in Ontario, and quickly developed to 2 more commercial sites. 2 commercial sites and 8 farm sites originally. Now we have 14 sites in on 13 of them in Ontario, and we've got a site in British Columbia we're now working with, and hoping to work out west. Since we formed, when we first started, we kind of collected everybody's waste that we already were getting, and we were kind of processing in 2013 65,000 tons. We have grown substantially to 2023. We processed 315,000 tons of organic waste, and basically gave it a new purpose, diversion from landfill. And taking that waste that would normally go to landfill and getting a second use out of it, producing green energy, and at the end of the day, producing a fertilizer that we can use on our field. So, the Cornerstone Group combined kilowatt production for 2021 was 67 million kilowatt hours of pure green energy. It's been a very good group for ourselves and the environment. Here's just a bit of a graph to show you the process. You know, organic waste coming in, fermenter. Not that important, but enough of our advertising that we use. Myself, just my site alone, power production for 2021 was 3,100,000 kilowatts. And if you took the average family of 4 household using 9,600 kilowatts annually, which basically means my operation is generating enough for 327 homes of pure green energy. That's just a picture of the engine that we use. It's basically like a diesel, natural gas engine, but it's a very heavy engine. So the bottom end's a lot similar to a cat engine that you would see in a transport truck, 440 horse engine. And then they switch the top end to have spark plugs. So it's spark plug ignition. So the gas gets mixed with oxygen, goes into the cylinder, and then the combustion engine. What we found, one of the things that we found on it is how quickly the hours on the engines rack up. Just from farming, as any of you may know, there, like a tractor with 10,000 hours on it is an old tractor. That's done a lot of work. And within the first 2 years, I had 10,000 hours on my digester engines. From here, it's got. This is a little old. That was 2021. I think that engine has 80,000 hours of runtime. So these things are just tickety-boo, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just running away on biogas. Because those engines are running 24/7, and nobody's around. They've got a very sophisticated computer system to monitor everything, and then if anything goes wrong, a lot of safety switches. So it'll shut off and then call me to tell me that there's something wrong. They're kind of always on call with these things. Thing that we have the safety nets in there. There's as anybody knows, an engine that's running all the time, you're going to have times when something goes kaboom. So fortunately, we haven't had any of those things, but I know lots of peers in the industry that have had blowing up engines, or a couple guys last year in our Cornerstone group had engine fires. So that's a very bad negative thing on it, but they happen. I just put some of this as kind of benefits of having an AD facility on our dairy farm. We're mostly our main business is dairy farm and the production of milk, but by being environmentally conscious there, we decided to do this AD, and it got a second use out of our dairy manure. So it's kind of a diversification of business and creating multiple income sources for our business. Lowering the environmental impact of our dairy herd. Everybody's nowadays all you hear on the news is carbon impact, carbon footprint. What's your carbon footprint? And everybody's committing, a lot of the big factories or big processors are committing to be carbon neutral by, even our dairy farmers at DFC has committed to be carbon neutral by 2033. Well, how are they going to get there? One of the big things is this: we're basically that a manure from a dairy herd is going into a far off manure tank. It's slowly releasing methane while it's sitting there. And when you spread it on the field, it's releasing methane into the environment. We're taking that methane and basically getting electricity out of it, which is a plus, but we're burning it and turning it into CO2. CO2 is, as you know, a greenhouse gas. That's bad, but methane is 21 times worse than CO2. So we're taking something that naturally would have been emitted into the environment and making it something better and better for the environment. So it's a great thing. Like I said, creating a circular economy, field to fork and back to field. We're getting a better fertilizer source that grows really good crops. Some of the things we've noticed with our manure, it's turned the manure more into a fertilizer as opposed to a manure. So it's very quick, readily available to the plant, which has probably improved our yields. It also changes how we treat our manure. We've kind of switched to doing a lot of green spreading. So trying to spread our manure on a growing crop so the crop grabs it and sucks in those nutrients quicker as opposed to bare ground. Yeah, and what we've noticed is it's growing better crops. We're getting a lot of yield out of our especially our forage crops, things that we're feeding our cows. It just really likes this stuff, and it grows. I've got a neighbor that has a friend down the road there that has a strawberry farm and a kind of a small market gardening farm, and he grows a lot of asparagus and rhubarb, and people rant about his rhubarb, and I bring him a load of my digestate there, and when he's planting the stuff just takes off like crazy. He says this stuff's awesome. I love this stuff. So it's bode him very well in his market gardening operation. So the final item I said was byproducts, like we talked about, bedding material. One of the things I forgot to touch on was the heat source. So when you first start up a digester, the digester likes to be at, the liquids in it need to be at about 38 to 40 degrees Celsius. So once you initially heat that up and you take the gas that you're producing and running it in the engine, what we do is we collect the heat off the engine, because as you know, an engine needs a radiator. So we're actually pulling the heat off the engine to turn around and heat the digester. So once you get the beast rolling, it actually is circular and takes care of itself, plus produces quite a bit more heat than we need. So my house is heated by it, shops, hot water, all that stuff on the farm, and I really still don't use all the heat that I produce. Some of the first digesters in the province were connected to greenhouses, and those guys, that was a very neat concept, because they didn't need to set up a contract to sell electricity. They used a lot of their electricity, so they had a huge heat demand and a huge hydro demand. So it was doing a very big cost savings for their operation. So it worked very well. Just a picture of our manure tankers, what we're spreading the end product on our digester out to the field. That's just a picture of some example of our rye. So we'll come so we grow rye. We plant that after our corn silage in the fall. It comes up in the spring and it's about 2 or 3 inches tall after the snow is gone. And we'll spread our digestate from our digester on that stuff, and it just takes it. It's like it's on steroids. It just goes berserk, and that's what I was cutting. I guess the middle of I would say the middle of May. So that stuff wakes up in the spring, looks like wheat, and then just takes off because you dump this manure on it, and it just goes, and we get a whole crop of yield there for our dairy herd. Some of the disadvantages that I'll admit to, uh, is we've created increased truck traffic on back rural roads because of this. Now that this a lot of the waste product that we receive is from processing. The processing's from the city. The cities, that way the garbage is leaving those cities anyways. So we're diverting it from landfill, but it is increasing our local truck traffic. And I guess if I asked my neighbors if there was anything that they didn't like about mine, it would be that sometimes there's some odors and there's an increased truck traffic, right? So a lot of the time I'm getting maybe one to two trucks coming into my facility because of the digester per day. So that's nothing to balk at. We had a lot issues with the uptime. So a lot of I won't go on to too much details, but we had a lot of issues with grid stability. So out in the rural, and it is a problem in the rural parts of Ontario, is electrical stability, stray voltage, things like that. And my facility helps improve it, but it has its limitations. So we are producing 3-phase hydro, and if one of those phases is out of whack too much, my digester can't run. So actually what we found is there's a summer trailer park down the road, and they have probably over 600 sites on their 100-acre farm there, which is a great thing for the community. But that whole place is run on single phase, and it throws the whole area really wonky. So what we found the one summer was every time it was 30 degrees out, and on the weekend, long weekend, so everybody in the trailers, everybody's got their air conditioning running. I couldn't run my digester because the lines were so far out of balance, it never worked. But those were issues that took a few years for Hydro One to get that figured out, but we've kind of gotten past that, and that's not a problem. Some of the other ones, costly maintenance. A lot of these parts for these digesters come from Europe. So it's a very expensive thing to get it across the pond. And if you are broke down, how quickly can you get those parts from other countries? Time, labor to run the digester. It's on a daily basis to maintain it. It maybe takes a guy an hour a day to check things over and to do this and do that with it. But it's a lot like a piece of equipment on any kind of a farm. If it breaks down and you need it, it's all hands on board. So, and all day until you get it fixed. So that's kind of what we end up running into with this. It's created a whole new definition of getting dirty. I'm used to getting dirty and working with cows and getting my hands dirty in manure, but this thing adds a whole new ball game to it. A lot of the waste material we get in is greasy. It's waste bacon grease, that type of thing. And when something breaks down and you got to get a pump running, you get your elbows deep into this just disgusting stuff. So it's made it kind of interesting. So I've spent a few nights sleeping on the couch because I stink so bad there from that thing there that my wife won't let me into the bedroom. But we'll deal with that. Last point, kind of would we do it again after knowing that all the disadvantages that we run into and problems that we have? Absolutely. It's a great thing for the environment. It's a great thing I think for the agriculture industry there to reduce our environmental and carbon footprint. And this is a great way to do it and bring more economy back to rural Ontario or Canada for that instance. That's just a picture. Some of the disadvantages is this cleaning out. So every once in a while, these vessels will need to get cleaned out. So that's kind of a picture of what we ran into So that normally is right full of liquids all the time. And we ended up having mixers break down, and we couldn't properly mix the material up. So we ended up with a very large crust of bits of, yeah, whatever. And we had to get it cleaned out. Just a picture of it there and the video of it. So that's a picture of the roof when we're putting it back on. Obviously, these are open top tanks, and then you put 2 layers. So there's actually 3 layers there. If you look closely, there's a kind of a white crusty layer. That's a sulfur barrier. So the gas that's produced from digesters is kind of laden with sulfur. Sulfur's bad in an engine. So there's actually bacteria that live on that when it's operating that actually take the sulfur out of the gas and drop it back into the manure. So, and then we put what I'm standing on there is a rubber membrane. So that's the inner membrane, and then the outer, it kind of works like a bladder. So the outer membrane always stays full to shed water, snow, and all that stuff. And then the inner membrane goes up and down like a bladder. Some of the things with the whole industry of biogas that's current and going on. I was one of we've been operating, so the second digester was 2016. There hasn't been any new digesters, or very few new digesters after we got our second one running. And part of that was change in government. The FitCon with switching over from liberals to the conservatives, they dropped the Green Energy Act. It was kind of people didn't like them. People don't like the wind farms. They were kind of blaming that on increased electrical prices. So they killed it. So there hasn't been any of that. The only thing that's been kind of going on for electrical or for biogas is renewable natural gas. So there's been a few digesters in Ontario that have been built in the last 3 or 4 years that are injecting renewable natural gas into the line. You may have read some of them. Stanton Farms by London, they're doing that. They're actually in our Cornerstone group, so I know them quite well. The interesting part about it is we're producing it in Ontario, but there's no infrastructure to buy it in Ontario. So Stanton Farms they're producing natural gas, they're putting in the pipeline, and obviously it doesn't leave the area, it's getting used in London, but they actually sell it to British Columbia, because British Columbia is the only ones in Canada that actually have a system to purchase renewable natural gas. So they kind of put it in the line here and with a meter, and they collect it on the other side of the country and pay them for it. So kind of found it interesting because the media, one of those things where the politicians and Enbridge, their local gas utility, just love this thing, and lots of pictures for the media and look at what we're doing. This is awesome. And it's like, yeah, but you guys aren't actually buying it. BC's buying it. To me, that kind of rubs me the wrong way. But I'm glad BC did a really good job of creating a market for it. And they don't have enough in their own province, so they're willing to buy it first in Canada, and second, if they need it, they'll buy it from the state. So I'd say they've done a very good job of that. Like I said, infrastructure is one of the biggest issues with growth in this industry. So even if we had electrical contracts to have, which we're working on opening that back up, there's been a lot of digesters built if we had proximity to the proper heavy lines. So I was lucky enough to have 3-phase hydro going very close, and basically the back of my farm, there's 3-phase hydro. Most farms up and down rural Ontario have single phase. Well, those aren't heavy enough lines to have a digester to hook into. And it's very, very costly for it comes on the digester to build those lines. So for us, even though it was at the back of the farm, and this is going back 2013, so things got a lot more expensive. But for us, it was to get Hydro One to build the lines would have been $200,000. So it's basically 100,000 a kilometer. So if you have any distance at all to build lines, it blows the feasibility out the window. Gas lines are even worse. How many people have natural gas lines down up and down the back roads? Not very few. So you have to be very lucky to have and if you do have a gas line on a back road, a lot of the time it's not big enough. So it's either too big or too small. So if you're lucky enough to have, well, not lucky enough, but if you have like a Trans-Canada pipeline going through the back, that's far, far too big. And the local one that might be supplying your farm will be way, way too small. So the feasibility is not there, and the grid infrastructure is not there to go and say, well, let's do this on every single dairy farm, or let's do this on every livestock farm. It's not going to work unless there's a big improvement in infrastructure. Municipal waste. A lot of the digesters are now taking municipal waste. So your green bin programs from your municipalities. That's a great thing, but it's also a hard thing to do. So guys, that type of waste is coming to facilities and they have to actually clean it and process it. So they run it through like a hammer mill to take all the plastics out, because a lot of the time green bin waste is very dirty, laden with plastic. So we got to get that stuff cleaned out before we can put it in digesters. And then yeah, basically we're working. The big hot topic, like I said, was carbon footprint, and I think there's a huge potential for farms, digesters, and farms to figure out what their carbon indexing and impact is, and there's an opportunity for some monetary from that. So you hear people buying carbon credits. So the big, we'll call it big industry, is has the they are supposed to meet certain standards of carbon, and if they don't meet it, they have to pay for it. So they got to buy it from somebody that's doing a good job. Now, if you think about it, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's basically they're kind of buying their way out of jail, so to speak. But there is that ability to do that. So people that are doing a good job and on their carbon scoring can actually sell their carbon a carbon credit to somebody that's willing to buy it. So that's in its infancy, and it's developing. There's a lot of stuff you hear on the media about it, but it's still very, very new and undeveloped, but it's coming for sure. One of the last things I'll touch on is RNG fueling. So a lot of some transports, buses, a lot of municipal buses have switched over to natural gas because it's better for the environment and it can burn cleaner than diesel. Next step is renewable natural gas. So grabbing it from these digesters, and you can actually pressurize it and take it to the bus fueling station, and then they'll fill it, and they're running on 100% green gas, which is 100% renewable. So that's something that's in getting developed right now as we speak. So kind of interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of my presentation. I'll maybe stop sharing. And then I'm very open to any questions that you guys have about it.
Hi, Dave, I see a country today, and I can't remember which country, is going to start taxing all the methane gas that's released from their dairy herds. And then they said within the next couple of years, they're gonna be taxing them for goats, and I forget what else it was. But what did you guys think of that?
It's a scary thing, and as an industry in Canada, I know guys on the DFC that are looking at that, and we're trying to be proactive. So let's get our carbon neutral and get working towards that. So the governments don't come in and hammer down on that. Europe is always very aggressive that way. They always have been aggressive with their farmers, mandating them and regulating them. I even heard a story, and I'm a legit person in Holland. The guy had a farm, and on the other side of the road is a naturally protected area. And they've even gone to the point where they do not want combustion engines driving down the road. So basically, you can't drive down that road in that natural area with anything other than an electric car. They actually have sensors sitting on this road with cameras on them that basically will pick up if you're driving by with a gas, with exhaust, and take a picture of your license plate, and then they'll get you. So that's the extreme of it. The part that worries me is it kind of comes down to that environment versus food. We've got a big world to feed people with, and how are we going to feed them and take care of the environment? And it's a balancing act, right? It's kind of like deforestation in Brazil, or deforestation anywhere. I think there's a balance. We need to feed a lot of people, and how do you do that? Protecting the environment and trying to maintain habitat for animals and wildlife, right? So yeah, we have to cut down trees to feed people, but let's do it smartly and do it as best we can and with the least amount of environmental impact. So bringing it back home in Canada, if we can do things like this and be very aggressive with reducing our carbon footprint, then hopefully we can get ahead of the curveball and avoid a situation where governments are coming in and taxing us on it. Well, and let's face it, it's kind of like the carbon tax. They came in and put the carbon tax on and told everybody it wasn't going to increase our cost of living. Well, who hasn't been in the grocery store, right? Our cost of food has gone through the roof. Well, guess what? The whole food infrastructure is heavy on fossil fuels. We need diesel to run our farm equipment. We need diesel to take the cattle to market. We need diesel to take the meat to the store. All the way through it, it's going to get taxed. Well, it gets passed down to the consumer. So now we have a more expensive food. So I think it's a very scary thing.
Valerie, you have a question?
No. You said, now can you hear me okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
again.
Oh, good. That to me, my understanding is the more methane that is produced in these digesters, it gets converted to carbon, but methane is just so much worse than carbon dioxide, right?
That's correct.
So, but the more methane you produce, wouldn't that produce more carbon dioxide? So how can that be carbon neutral?
So environmentally, the methane will be released anyways. It's just how quickly. So if you take the manure, okay, take a manure. If you take a ton of manure and it's sitting outside, it's going to be slowly releasing the methane that it has in it. What I'm doing is by heating it, I'm speeding the process up and capturing it off the top. So the same thing with a food waste. So if you go and dump it in the landfill, the worst case scenario, landfill, it's going to slowly release the methane and leach out of the ground at some point in the future. What I'm doing is I'm breaking it down and grabbing that methane now and getting rid of it. Methane is always worse than CO2. It is 20, I think 21, don't quote me on that, but I believe the figure is 21 times more worse for the environment than CO2. So CO2 is still bad, but it's a lot better than methane. So we're reducing that environmental impact. We're not eliminating it. You're never going to eliminate it, but you're reducing it. Does that kind of answer your question? Plus,
Yeah.
that's just the basics of it. Plus, you're getting green electricity out of it while you're doing that. So there's some landfills around that are only flaring the gas. So they're trying to improve the environmental impact of what's getting released from the landfill by burning it. But we're taking it a step further and actually using that ability to generate to produce electricity. Compost, and compost is a great thing, and because it reduced, but I think it had its stepping stone. And like composting facilities, it reduced the amount of organics going to landfill, and it made it so it was going on the land as a fertilizer. But it did nothing to reduce the gases getting released, the greenhouse gases, because basically composting speeds that process up and releasing methane, and it's actually getting spewed out into the environment. So kind of a good thing, but yeah, now I think we've got a better technology. We can take that stuff and run it and capture the gas and use it. So
I have a green cone in my backyard. And so as things decompose down in there, it gets really hot. If I take the lid off the top, I can feel the heat coming right out of it, like an oven almost. And then so now I'm wondering, like, about the methane gas. It would be down in there somewhere, wouldn't it?
yes,
And it's not really coming out unless it's leaking out around the seams. Is that the case, do you think?
it would be leaching off. Yes, for sure.
Yeah, yeah. And then the green bins, Woodstock is considering getting them. But if people are educated to just put food waste in and not plastics and things like that, then that should work in a biodigester too.
Yes. So yeah, I'll give you a long answer for that. Good luck educating people to keep plastic out of their green bin waste.
I know.
It does not happen. It's kind of like if you have, I worked at the Embro Highland Games, and I mean, they're trying to do an environmental job for these community events, and you have recycling and garbage and a compost bin, hoping that the people will do it. Well, what ends up happening is they're walking past a bin and they throw it in. I mean,
Mhm.
your recyclables are dirty, and but that's just a small example. But on the municipal side, so in Toronto, they are collecting green bin, and it is going to digesters, but there's a step in between. It has to go to a facility that will run it through a machine that takes the plastic out. So it's actually kind of like a big grinder, and then has a sieve, and the organics get turned into mush and get pumped out, and the plastics go out the other end. One of the biggest things that really irks me about it is a lot of the municipalities, they've got lofty goals to reduce waste diversion, right? How much tons can we reduce going to landfill? One of the ways they're doing it is diapers in their green bin waste. So they think that they're doing a good thing, and they say, okay, well, you can put diapers because it's human waste, use that waste in a composting facility or digester, and look at us. Look, we're reducing how much is going to landfill. No, you're not, right? Like, let's face it, we all know our child, how much of that diaper is actually usable waste. That sorting facility that I told you about is taking all that stuff out. It's still going to landfill. So, the municipalities have been able to put a feather in their cap and say, oh yeah, look at us. By putting diapers in, we've diverted this much less to landfill. No, you didn't. And it just made that process of cleaning it up a lot more difficult. But yes, so that was the long answer. Woodstock is I've actually had a phone call in a few days there with them. They had actually called me to talk about it. Green bin waste, but it will definitely have to go to a facility that gets it clean first, and then it can actually go to farm sites, or it can go to there are a few commercial digesters too there that are environmentally approved to take that stuff. Still goes to the same spot. It still goes out to farms as fertilizer, but it's just a different scale. So Did that answer your question?
Yep. It's all interesting. And I think it's a great thing to have a big digester like that and convert all that stuff into something usable.
There's even a few small like ours is a kind of a sizable, so 500 kilowatts, and we have to bring in organic waste to do it. I have a friend that's south of Woodstock that actually has it's called a micro digester. So he's only milking, not only, he milks 60 cows. So the amount of, he doesn't have enough infrastructure there to go and put a big digester up. So what he's doing is actually just net metering. Very small digester, very small engine, and he's producing small amount of kilowatts, but you can put that on a single phase line and it basically eliminates his hydro bill and makes a little bit extra. So kind of that's a neat concept. So he's doing that he's reducing the environmental impact of dairy herd and savings in electrical, but it's a lot smaller scale.
Linda, you have your hand up?
I was just wondering, when you're saying removing plastic from the green bins, excuse me, is that the compostable plastic bags that we buy to put in them?
Yes and no. So interestingly enough, with those compostable bags, that's probably it's better for the landfill, because that stuff will still end up in the landfill. So that processing that I'm talking about doesn't recognize what compostable plastic is and what's not compostable plastic, right? So it's pulling that out regardless. And I don't think it's not designed to break down within weeks. It's designed, I don't know what they say plastic breaks down in the landfill, but let's call it 200 years. Well, compostable plastic probably breaks down in 50 years. So yes, it's better, but is it the solution that everybody, that's kind of, to me, it's a bit of false advertising that, oh, okay, I got this compostable plastic, I can use that in my green bin waste, and haha, that's way better, and this is awesome. No, it's not. Kind of falls in the same category as those diapers, where it's like, yeah, we have to clean the organics away from the plastics, and that compostable plastics has got to get pulled out as well. So whether it's a composting facility or a digester, they all run it through the same process, and it's going to get that plastic cleaned out of it.
I have had a few bags break down within about 4 weeks.
Oh, yeah?
So I was kind of surprised at that. And then one other thing I wanted to mention was, I realized that you're in Oxford County, but in Norfolk County, a lot of the tobacco farmers that had bulk kills had to run 3-phase electric. And so most of them with the bulk kills were also running gas. So I don't know whether any of those farmers have been approached to possibly run digesters or not.
So they could. A lot of the infrastructure in Ontario is always hooked to livestock, because the manure is a really good base, and it's reducing that. So Norfolk County has a lot less livestock in that area where there's a lot of hydro infrastructure. So, but like I said, some of the first guys that do it were greenhouse operators. So there's 2 digesters in Niagara on the Lake. One's very close to the QEW, Bayview Flowers, and they put a digester up, and that's exactly what they did. So they have a huge demand for natural gas for heat, and a huge demand for electricity, right? So that's probably that's one of the best places for a anaerobic digester, without having the infrastructure like a fit contract or something like that. So somebody that might actually be able to justify it without just in their own farming operation.
Okay, thank you.
Jane?
Yes, I don't know how to put my hand up. I just got a new Apple computer, so I just wave it in the air. But any case, mine is more of a comment. We had a gentleman talk to us from Loyalist College, And he was telling us about these digesters, and he said there is a place, I think somewhere in Ontario, where they're doing the compost from a city or a town. But they're building in Trent, well, they're in Belleville. They're going to build a little composter, a decomposter for training students. So you'll probably get a lot more people in the workforce that will know about them. And, you know, yeah, so that was sort of interesting. Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. I've enjoyed your talk. It was very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. There is a small digester at the Ridgetown College. I haven't talked to the girl in a few years. I haven't seen her in a few years, but I knew the girl that was in charge of running that. And that was, it was kind of set up by the University of Guelph as a learning facility for that too. And
Yeah.
a lot more, I guess, on the experimental side of it too. So
Yeah.
one of the scary things is, and I mean, you guys have maybe heard the term microplastics too. So there is some concern with, bringing in the dirty waste that you actually process and clean out. Are we getting enough of that plastics out that you're not catching on, right? So little bits, and where does that end up? Is that getting out into the fields and staying there, right? So there's definitely concerns.
Yeah.
There's always 2 steps forward and 1 step back sometimes.
Back. Yeah. You got to find a way of getting rid of that. Yeah.
And I think that, Jane, you brought up a good point. Educate, and the next generation will be better educated on what not to put in the garbage than we are. It's just, that's my opinion. Great talk, Dave. It was
You're very
awesome.
welcome.
Your mom should be very proud of you. Anybody else have any comments? I know there's some farmers on here.
What about kitty litter? Can you throw that in the digester?
Yep, you can. The clay could be a problem with settling out, because I think there's a lot of clay in that, right?
Yeah, it's heavy.
Yeah.
Heavy,
There's a bit of an issue, but interesting little tidbit. I don't know if any of you watch breakfast television, but about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a lady that got a lot of traction in Toronto. Just the media just blew her up. She had a company called Poop. And what her little business was grabbing, you could contract her to go to your backyard and clean up all the dog poop in town. And she has actually bringing it to Cornerstone, our group, for waste disposal, right? So she was selling, and rightly so, she was selling to her customers as like, we're cleaning up the dog poop and it's going to produce green energy. Which is great. And breakfast television just grabbed a hold of this thing, and it was dog poop power. We're powering the province off of dog poop. And it's a great story, but same thing with the media, right? But the scale of it, I mean, she was a pickup truck with 6 or 7 garbage bag fulls of dog poop every 2 weeks. That's not, I get 40-ton loads in twice a day. So the amount of better environment out of that dog poop was pretty minimal, but still a step in the right direction.
Yeah. Every little bit helps, so they say.
Well, you can be rest assured, in my kitchen, I don't live on the farm, but my kitchen, we got a waste bin for organics, and that goes to the digester. That's always a guarantee. So
yeah.
Good plan.
I am just blown away by the amount of information you gave us this evening. It's makes us all think. And we need to, I think the next generation thinks. I know my grandkids sometimes give my husband a rough time about what he puts in the garbage. because they know better. And so hopefully in our, what's left of our short lifetime here, it will get better. I just want to thank you, Dave, very much for this topic tonight. It was awesome. Are there any more questions for Dave?
One of a neat thing I kind of forgot, the kind of addresses the carbon taxing of farmers in Europe. But I heard something, it was in a report, and I kind of double checked it just out of my own curiosity. And it's talking about, you know, obviously the carbon impact of farming, and then it said an average plane that flies down to the Caribbean and back uses more it'd be jet fuel than a whole farm, the average farm in the US uses in one whole year. So, you know, it's kind of one of those perspective things. I know, you know, like the European farmers, it's like it's low bearing fruit. Let's pick on these guys first. But okay, in the same token, you're pointing the finger, but then you're jumping on a plane and going on vacation. And I'm not saying that we should shut the planes down and stop going on vacation, but we got a pretty big environmental impact right there, but nobody seems to be talking about it.
Yeah.
I'm producing carbon, but I'm also feeding people. So there's that balance, right?
The cruise ships going all over the world, they really throw up a lot of carbon too, don't they? And garbage as well.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I'm just getting a phone call. Oh. Yeah.
I think most are,
You're not even there yet?
No.
I think most people are off, shut down their video just because we're from all over the province and some have sketchier connections than others. So there are 23 of us.
So I'm going to thank you, ladies, but I'm going to have to step off because I got to go pick my daughter up from a 4-H meeting. So thanks for hosting me, and it was great talking with you, ladies, tonight. And yeah, thank you.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good
Mhm.
evening.
Oh, Margaret, it wasn't my total, it was Laura Green's idea, and she let me run with it. Do you guys want to do anything about the reading circle tonight? Anybody got some books that we need to read over the summer? Or are we done?
Well, I just read one that was really good, and it's called Nosy Parker, and I forget her last name is Crew, Crew, and I can't remember her first name. She's written several books. You might have read some of her other books, but I really enjoyed that one.
And what was it called again?
Nosy Parker.
Nosy Parker.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm reading that one right now, and it's by Leslie Crew. And
Leslie,
she's going to be one of the guest speakers at the triennial there in Truro.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because she lives in Nova Scotia.
Well, she lives in Montreal, but she summers in
Nova Scotia, maybe, yeah.
she used to. But yeah, so I've read her most recent book, the Recipe for Life.
Yeah, I read
That one
that
was really good.
too.
So
I think you'd enjoy any of her books. Yeah.
yeah, I'll look forward to seeing her at the convention for sure. And I don't know if Linda Zellam's still there, but when she was talking about buying those expensive biodegradable bags, my sister used to not want to pay for that. So she always kept her newspaper and she would wrap up any of the wet, like peelings and things in the paper and then put it in the green bin.
Yeah, a lot of people use cereal boxes too, because apparently you can put cardboard, some cardboard in them, and just put your waste stuff in that and then just dump the whole box in your green bin.
Yep.
But we're not allowed like, I'm in a condo now and they won't let us do compost because they say we don't know how to compost. And I was quite insulted when they told me that, because I've always done it where I lived before, but there we are. We've got no compost bin.
Yeah, I suppose you're one of how many?
Well,
You
this,
know how, but how many of the others just don't behave?
well, there's 72 units here, but we can't, we don't use green bins. Unfortunately, all our compost goes into the garbage.
Yeah,
Because
it's
they
sad,
won't let
isn't
us
it?
have green bins.
Yeah. Educate, educate, educate.
Hmm.
Yeah, so.
Anyways.
Any other books that we want to talk about?
Do any of you like fantasy?
Mm-hmm.
I really like Barbara Hamley. She's written several trilogies, and the most
Oh.
recent one I just read was the Dark. Armies of the Daylight was the third in the trilogy. I had to give my other two back to our daughter. She got me onto Barbara Hamley. So the Darwath trilogy. So sometimes they're pretty dark, and scary. She writes really, really well. And her descriptions are wonderful. And of course, her the fantasy part of the stories really takes you away from any other problems you might have, shall we
Mhm.
say.
Yeah,
But yeah, I enjoy Barbara Hamley.
I'll try it. I haven't
I-
read any of her books, I don't think.
Okay. I really enjoy Lucinda Riley as an author, and currently I'm working through the Seven Sisters series. And right now I'm reading the fourth book, which is set in Northwest Australia, because I will be visiting there later in the year. But the whole thing is set in actually a town in Northwest Ontario I hadn't heard of, and I do not associate the pearl trade with Australia, but back in the late 1800s, early 19, that was a huge part of their economy.
Mhm. What was the name of the author again?
Lucinda Riley.
Okay.
She's written a number of books. There will be no more from her because actually she ended up writing an 8th book to this on the guy who had adopted all these 7 sisters, but her son had to finish the book because she was too ill.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And Janet couldn't be with us tonight, but I'm sure she will pick up these names and get them posted on the website for us. I'm reading the what is it called? The Time Traveler's Wife right now. I mean, I've watched the movie 7 times, but apparently the book is better than the movie. So we'll see. I'm working on that.
Good.
It takes me forever to read a book. So, all right. I think if we're okay with this, we are going to be taking July off. We're going to take August off, and hopefully we come back in September. And oops, my calendar's out in the other room. But don't worry, I'll let you know. This one kind of took us a little while to get it organized, but I do appreciate that Laura Green, a board member, and David's mother, did this for me, for us.
Mm-hmm. It was very interesting.
I hope everybody has a wonderful summer. And I have no major plans this year. I'm just going to hopefully. Hi, Chris. I'm working on doing that. So if you have any step, please send. Yep, will do. So I think I'm ready to stop recording, and unless somebody else has something they want to say.
Nope, just thanks a lot, Chris, and everybody have a great summer.
Yeah.
Yes, have a great
Yep.
summer.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Happy Canada Day, everyone.
Yeah,
Hey.
thank you.
I got a message, Chris, from people in the east. They're having a bad storm, and so they couldn't get on.
Oh, okay. Well, we sure had a bad storm here this 2-ish this afternoon. It was terrible. Thanks, Michelle, for joining us tonight. Did you enjoy it? Yeah. Did you enjoy it?
I did. That was very interesting.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yes, I've been talking to Laura about a little bit, so it was nice to hear a little more of the detail in the background of what they actually do on their farms. And it's cool.
Yeah. It was too bad that she had to accept an award tonight and couldn't be with us.
Oh, well, what was she getting an award for?
I think it was from the Caledonian Society in Zora.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. She's a busy gal.
Yeah.
Okay. Have a great summer, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.